Rebel Witch Audiobook. 1. Gideon. Gideon tugged at the jacket of his stolen uniform. The forest green fabric was stiff, as if it hadn't been broken in. The poor guard he'd taken it from was currently unconscious and tied up in a supply closet on the 3rd floor of Larkmont Palace. 4 other guards hadn't been so lucky. Their bodies were floating in the frigid waters of the fjord. He'd had no choice. Gideon was deep in enemy territory. If discovered, he'd be better off dead. His thoughts were a dark contrast to the bright ballroom he stood in. Musical instruments hummed as they warmed up, preparing for the private recital that was about to start. Chandeliers winked overhead as servants wove between the glittering guests in Prince Soren's ballroom, offering one last round of refreshments before the music started. As Gideon stood along the wall, watching the room like the other guards, his gaze fixed on his mark. The beautiful girl in the golden dress. Rune Winters. Prince Soren stood beside her, his palm pressed to the small of Rune's back. The Umbrian prince wore a tailored suit, his family's silver crest stitched into the cape slung stylishly over one shoulder, and his hungry gaze roamed down the dress Rune wore, inviting his rich friends to do the same. Gideon's blood burned as he watched them. It was a beautiful gown. He couldn't deny it. Made by some fancy designer, it likely cost a small fortune. But it wasn't Rune. Gold didn't suit her, and the cut was severe. The plunging V neckline ended a few inches above her belly button in front and at the base of her spine and back, sending a powerful message. Look at her. She's mine. The prince wanted his guests to admire the beautiful witch on his arm. To Soren, Rune was an exotic creature, a living artifact he was determined to add to his collection. If Harrow's intel was correct, 1 week ago, the prince had asked her to marry him, and Rune had accepted on one condition. If Soren wanted her for a wife, he had to give Cressida an army. It's why Gideon volunteered for this job. With an army, Cressida would wage war against the New Republic. If she won, she would reinstate the reign of witches and more people would die. Gideon couldn't let that happen. So long as Rune was the linchpin in this unholy alliance between Cressida and Soren, he couldn't let her live. Gideon had kill orders, and he was going to see them through. Right here. Tonight. He'd waited all evening for his chance. Standing against the wall of the ballroom, sweating in this stolen uniform, he watched Rune flirting with her betrothed. Watched Soren flirt back, touching her with hungry hands, devouring her with haughty eyes. It was driving him to the brink. Alex was barely in the ground, and Rune was already engaged to another man. A prince, no less. Is that what she wanted all along? A prince? He was a fool to think he'd ever had a chance. Gideon fingered the gun holstered at his hip. He was ready. More than ready. All he needed was the right moment. Do you miss your home? Gideon scanned the circle of party guests surrounding Rune and Soren until his gaze landed on the speaker, a young woman with wheat gold hair braided into a crown. Rune laughed. Can you miss a place where everyone wants you dead? Gideon watched her press her champagne glass to her red lips, then tip the last swallow into her mouth. It was her 3rd drink tonight. Not that Gideon was counting. What was it like before the revolution? We witches once lived as you do? Rune said, motioning to the grand hall they stood in, where chandeliers twinkled and marble columns propped up the painted ceiling. Our lives were full of music, beauty, art. Yes, thought Gideon. And your luxuries came at the expense of our misery. The buzz and hum of fiddles grew louder. Gideon glanced across the room where guests began to fill chairs facing the musicians. That way of life was stolen from us the night Gideon Sharp led a group of revolutionaries into the palace. At the sound of his name on her lips, his attention shot back to her. He murdered 2 queens in their beds while his comrades cut the rest of us down in the streets. He would have let them murder me too if Cressida hadn't saved me. Gideon bristled. Please click on the link in the description. Dear book lover, wonderful person, to listen to the entire book, please click on the link in the description. Please click on the link in the description. Dear book lover, wonderful person, to listen to the entire book, please click on the link in the description.